Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World Food Prize 9th Annual Award Ceremony. We will begin the program in a few minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
From the day we arrived on the planet, Blinking stepped into the sun. There's more to see than can never be seen, more to do than can never be done.
Circle of life,
Circle of life
and it moves us all
moves us all.
through despair and hope, faith and love,
Faith and love,
till we find our place on the path unwinding. In the circle,
in the circle of life. Some of us fall by the wayside, some of us soar to the stars, some of us sail through our troubles, some have to live with the scars. It's a circle of life, moves us all. Faith and love, find a place in the circle, in the circle. A circle of life. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so pleased that you have joined us for this special occasion, the 9th Annual World Food Prize Award Ceremony. I'm Kerry Krausen, and those wonderful children that you just heard singing are from Callanan Middle School here in Des Moines. Please help me give them a warm welcome, their principal, Barb Malahi, and their director, Nancy Mars. The Circle of Life. Our new laureate has saved millions of lives and will inspire your life with his extraordinary story this afternoon. So to get on with our journey, please welcome your MC, Mr. Robert Havener.
Thank you very much for being with us. On behalf of the Council of Advisors of the World Food Prize and speaking for the World Food Foundation, it's my privilege to welcome you here this afternoon. Many of you were with us earlier when we had the roundtable discussion, and I think you were impressed by the dedication of each of the speakers as they talked about the challenges which lie ahead. The war on hunger is by no means over. It is a challenge which faces us all and will for at least decades and perhaps generations to come. And yet it is an effort which is bearing fruit. This generation throughout the world is better fed than any preceding generation before, in many senses because of the work of people like our laureate this year. This is the 9th Annual World Food Prize Award, and I think you will agree that we have chosen this year a distinguished recipient who has made an immense contribution to an extremely difficult and important part of the world. It is a part of our challenge today to call forth his works and those of who have been his predecessors, including many in the room who have not received the World Food Prize yet, to call forth their challenges and their achievements in ways that will challenge the youth of our country to continue, and indeed around the world, to continue in their footsteps. As we do so, let me first introduce the video which will highlight the features of the program. Please.
Many individuals take food for granted, but take it away even briefly, and people experience devastating hunger. Take it away for a protracted length of time, and they die. People in affluent nations often think of hunger as a distant, incomprehensible concept, but it isn't. Tragically, hunger and malnutrition most often affect the unborn, small children, and their mothers. Civilization cannot survive, let alone thrive, without a stable, nutritious food supply, one capable of producing not only enough food for the world population of 5.7 billion people, but enough to meet the needs of a population that is growing by 87 million, or nearly the population of Mexico annually, 238,000 daily, almost 10,000 hourly. Until 1986, there was no major prize for those who improved the quality, quantity, and availability of food in the world. No global recognition to inspire and challenge gifted, creative, and dedicated people to pursue careers in the complex field of food. But that has changed, thanks to the vision and accomplishments of one man. Dr. Norman E. Borlaug, eminent international scientist and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, for fathering the Green Revolution.
There was no prize available in the Nobel Foundation for food or agriculture. And so they put me through the window for peace, the only window through which I could pass. And now we have such a prize, so that on its own merit, food across all of the links in the chain can be recognized.
Dr. Borlaug dreamed of an award comparable to the Nobel Prizes, an award to honor people who addressed the alleviation of hunger and malnutrition. Beyond recognizing these people for their professional accomplishments, he saw the prize as a means of establishing role models who would inspire others. In 1986, Borlaug's dream was realized with the creation of the World Food Prize. The World Food Prize, now headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, in the heartland of American agriculture, recognizes achievements in every field affecting the world's food chain. The award is made without regard to race, color, religion, national origin, age, sex, or political beliefs. The College of Agriculture at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, serves as secretariat for the World Food Prize. Nominations are solicited from more than 3,500 institutions and organizations around the world. An anonymous selection committee reviews the nominations and selects the recipient. Awarding $200,000 to its laureate, the World Food Prize ranks among the world's preeminent honors. 1995 marks the 9th awarding of the World Food Prize. The first World Food Prize, awarded in 1987, went to M.S. Swaminathan of India. Dr. Swaminathan was honored for introducing the high-yielding miracle grains of wheat and rice to India's farmers. Robert F. Chandler, Jr. won in 1988 for establishing and serving as the first director of the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines. Dr. Chandler is credited with tripling rice production around the world and averting famine in Asia in the 1970s. In 1989, Verghese Kurian was chosen for revolutionizing milk production in India and teaching farmers to set up efficient distribution channels. His Operation Flood turned the smallest villages into cooperatives that produce, process, and market milk throughout India. The 1990 laureate, John S. Niederhauser, was honored for his innovative leadership in advancing the research, production, and global consumption of the potato. Dr. Niederhauser discovered and utilized a durable resistance to the potato late blight disease. In Mexico, potato production increased six-fold as a direct result of Dr. Niederhauser's role in developing a strong national program involving both scientists and farmers. In 1991, the World Food Prize was awarded to international nutritionist Nevin S. Scrimshaw. Dr. Scrimshaw was founding director of the Institute of Nutrition of Central America and Panama, INCAP, where he developed the principle for a low-cost, protein-rich food product to fight the deadly protein deficiency disease that attacks children in their weaning years. In 1992, the World Food Prize was awarded to a team of entomologists who gave the world an environmentally friendly means of eradicating specific insect parasites that threaten the food supply. Dr. Edward F. Nippling and Dr. Raymond C. Bushland of the United States developed the sterile insect technique, or SIT, used in the United States, Mexico, Central America, and Africa to control the screwworm, a destructive pest that attacks warm-blooded animals. SIT has also been used in many areas of the world to successfully control a variety of insects that damage fruits and vegetables. With SIT, no chemicals are used, no residues are left behind, and there are no effects on non-targeted species. The 1993 World Food Prize was awarded to Ha Kang, former Minister of Agriculture of the People's Republic of China, for his leadership in implementing agricultural reform, which enabled China in little more than a decade to become self-sufficient in basic food for the first time in modern history. This is a major accomplishment when one considers that China, with over 1 billion people, has 22% of the world's population, but only 7% of its arable land. Today, the Chinese are among the most efficient farmers in the world in terms of output per area. Economic empowerment has long been a watchword of the American political scene. For many of the world's poor and malnourished, it's more than a catchphrase. In less developed parts of the world, it's called food empowerment, or providing the poor with the means by which to grow and buy food. Dr. Muhammad Yunus was recognized as the 1994 World Food Prize laureate for his innovative programs, which have provided millions of people access to adequate food and nutrition for the first time in their lives. Dr. Yunus is the founder and chief executive of the Grameen Bank, one of the most unique financial institutions in the world. It is a bank for poor people. It is owned by the poor and loans its money to the poor for what is described as traditional subsistence activities, planting a crop, buying a cow, or grinding grain. In his native Bangladesh and in other underdeveloped countries where Dr. Yunus's methods have been replicated, the incidence of malnutrition has vastly decreased, and the agricultural infrastructure needed to sustain a sufficient food supply has strengthened steadily. Across a vast belt extending from Senegal and Angola in the west to Madagascar in the east, cassava is grown by subsistence farmers in a wide range of environmental conditions. Its edible roots are a staple in most of sub-Saharan Africa, providing up to half the daily calories of 200 million people. Because the roots can remain in the ground in edible condition for up to 2 years, the hardy cassava has earned a reputation as the famine reserve plant. In the early 1970s, a crisis came to Central Africa in the form of the cassava mealybug. This tiny pest threatened to destroy as much as 80% of the cassava crop in some areas, making widespread famine a real possibility. Such was the situation facing a young, newly arrived Swiss entomologist, Dr. Hans Herren, our 1995 recipient of the World Food Prize.
Yes, I think this award is very timely, certainly very unexpected from my end, and I think it's the greatest thing which happened not only to Africa but also to biological control. It shows that this method of controlling pests is very important, can have great success, and the recognition through the prize of this activity is just tremendous.
In addition, this crisis threatened to become an environmental disaster through the widespread and largely ineffective application of pesticides. In the face of this mounting crisis, Dr. Herren offered a natural solution. Find the cassava mealybug in its original native habitat, somewhere in the vast area between Southern California and northern Argentina, identify its natural enemies, and then import them to Africa. A biological control program of this magnitude had never before been attempted, but Dr. Herren remained undaunted. The first break came in 1981 when a cassava mealybug was discovered in Paraguay. Several potential predators were then collected and quarantined at a facility in Great Britain. The first natural enemy processed through quarantine was a wasp the size of a match head, which kills the cassava mealybug, and only the cassava mealybug, by laying eggs into the mealybugs and by feeding on them. Dr. Herren had the natural enemy he wanted, but would it survive in Africa? The wasps not only survived, but flourished, attacking mealybugs as far as 3 miles away. Dr. Herren next devised a breeding program and a means to distribute the wasps by airplane over the vast infested area. Any lingering doubts about his plan's effectiveness were rapidly dispelled. Within 5 months, wasps in one test area had spread as far as 120 miles. Over the next 7 years, Dr. Herren and his team effectively brought the cassava mealybug under control in 30 countries. Beginning as the sole researcher on the project, Dr. Herren successfully developed and implemented the Africa-wide cassava mealybug biological program, a project requiring extensive collaboration among many institutions and scientists in Africa, Europe, and the Americas. Dozens of scientists, hundreds of employees, and more than 100 research and training institutions worldwide now assist in biological control programs initiated by Dr. Herren and the team of scientists he assembled at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. Dr. Herren is now Director General of the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology in Nairobi, Kenya, and is a leading proponent for the development of biological controls and other ecologically sound pest and vector management methods throughout Africa and the tropics. In the years ahead, the World Food Prize will continue to honor the men and women whose life's work is dedicated to improving the quality, quantity, and availability of food for our ever-growing global population. The World Food Prize hopes to inspire others in their efforts and acquaint the world with the task of feeding future generations. Former President Jimmy Carter concurs.
The World Food Prize, I think, does do all three of these things: recognize achievement, inspire others to do greater work, and acquaint the public with the importance of providing high-quality food to people who are now in need of adequate nutrition.
This is also the pledge of businessman and philanthropist John Ruan, chairman of the World Food Prize Foundation, established to provide ongoing sponsorship for the prize.
I pledge my own energies and resources to these real-life heroes, whose work not only touches the soil, but also touches the hearts of all mankind. By assuming sponsorship of the World Food Prize, we can create almost an appropriate, nurturing environment for it, right here in what's often called the nation's breadbasket.
Much has been done to strengthen people's fundamental food supply, to fight hunger that's obvious, as well as hidden hunger caused by poor nutrition. Because of the World Food Prize laureates and many others whose ideas and dedication remain as yet unheralded, we are on many fronts better off than 50 years ago. But much remains to be accomplished. It is people, individuals, who will make the difference. The World Food Prize honors those who have and inspires others who will. And by their fruits, the world shall know them.
Obviously, you join me in congratulating those who have prepared a very, very fine video for us. Let me now take this opportunity to tell you a little about the institute, which the World Food Prize Foundation is also sponsoring. There's a youth institute in Iowa, and tomorrow we'll be having a live video teleconference across the state of Iowa talking about the issues which we have been addressing here today in the forum and which our speakers have been addressing today. Members of one of the student bodies are here along with their teachers. We ask them to please rise and be recognized. With us also is Colonel Schultz, who is providing the facilities and the networking and all of the technology that's necessary to make that work. You should be very proud of the National Guard unit, which is headquartered here. Earlier this morning, we visited their facilities. They have some of the state-of-the-art facilities of the world dealing with teleconferencing, dealing with remote education, and they are making these available for the World Food Prize tomorrow to deal with the schools and the educational systems of the state of Iowa in this effort. And I am very proud of them, and as a non-Iowan, I can be proud. As citizens of the state of Iowa, you should be very proud indeed. The goal of the prize is to stimulate people like these young people, such as these young people, to make important future contributions to increasing world food security. The vision which guides us all came from a son of Iowa, a native of Iowa, well known to most of you, recipient of the 1970 Nobel Peace Prize, my colleague and friend for most of my professional life, Dr. Norman E. Borlaug. Would you join me here, Norman?
Thank you, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I must say that I have renewed faith when I see these young Cougar-powered middle school youngsters up here performing in a serious vein, and also the participation of the high school faculty members and many of the students across the state in taking part in these World Food Prize activities over the last couple of years. I hope they'll continue. Let me briefly restate that the World Food Prize was designed to honor those people whose work has helped increase the quantity, quality, and availability of the world's food supply. To improve and protect the world's food is both one of the highest and most basic of callings, and Dr. Heron has answered that call in an exemplary manner. The biological control program designed by Dr. Heron to meet the infestation of the cassava mealybug in Africa was bold and highly successful. The product was one of the largest of its kind ever undertaken. It has arrested the cassava pest in more than 30 nations, saving millions of dollars and an indeterminable amount of human suffering. It should be noted that Dr. Herring began this work as a staff of one, he alone. Authorities in Africa and even many of his own colleagues were anything but convinced that the program he suggested would succeed. But he persevered, painstakingly building a network of financial and scientific resources, winning converts to his approach, and adding colleagues to his staff. What began as a one-man effort in the corner of a greenhouse is now a program involving hundreds of people and institutions in 4 continents. Dr. Heron's work exemplifies the bold, the innovative leadership that the World Food Prize was established to honor. He is a reminder to all of us that service to our fellow human beings and to the protection of the planet's resources are the scientists' true mission. Many of these challenges in Africa, and as many of you know, much of my personal work continues in Africa. In fact, I was just there 2 weeks ago, meeting with several of my scientific colleagues, including the Master of Ceremonies, our laureate, and President Jimmy Carter. When I was with President Carter, he talked about the prize, and he told me how much he enjoyed being present in Des Moines at the award ceremony last year. And he regretted that he would not be able to participate personally this year, but he's here in spirit. Thank you very much.
For many years, I've known Dr. Hans Herren and his remarkable work in Africa. In fact, in the early 1980s, I was familiar with his remarkable research work and his practical application of science to the real problem of mealybug attacks on cassava in Africa. Many people in the world may not know the importance of cassava, but it is the food of about 200 million poor people. And it's really the insurance against famine. And this precious crop was being wiped out by mealybug. And it was only the scientific capability and the dedication, and I would say courage, of Dr. Herren that was able to wipe this terrible threat away from this precious food supply. In Africa, agriculture is not easy. The ecological restraints, the poverty of the farmers, the lack of high technology, the restraints of conflict, ethnic and tribal divisions, the mobility of societies in famine situations, all these contribute to a lack of adequate food. Dr. Herren came into this environment and in numerous ways overcame these problems. The lack of money. This was a very low cost, highly efficient operation. Ecological constraints. Dr. Heron's techniques did not interfere with environmental quality. In fact, he depended on natural causes, natural events to achieve his goals. He never was involved in disrupting the normal farming practices of those to whom he was dedicating his life for assistance. The World Food Prize is, I would say, designed for two basic purposes. The first one is to honor those who have dramatically improved the supply of food for the people of the world. And the other one is to be so remarkable in its character that it inspires others, younger people, even other contemporary scientists, to devote more of their time to improving the world food supply. So to be a practical cause of increased food supplies and to inspire others. In both these respects, Dr. Heron has been superb. I'm very grateful to him personally because my good friend Dr. Norman Borlaug and I and many others have been trying to improve food supplies in Africa for a number of years. I do regret that I'm not at the ceremonies because I would love to be there. But now I happen to be in Ethiopia where the 1995 annual meeting of the Sasakawa Global 2000 program assessment is taking place. Dr. Borlaug and I happen to be here together with others, including Dr. Hans Heron. I'm very honored to make these few remarks from the bottom of my heart to congratulate Dr. Heron, to thank him personally, and to give my full support to the very noble purposes of the World Food Prize itself. There's no doubt that food production is increasing dramatically around the world as people become more and more familiar with the remarkable contributions of scientists like Dr. Heron. And I hope that many people will be inspired by the wonderful example he has set. I'm very grateful to play a small part in this World Food Prize program and congratulate all of those who've been so wise as to establish it and to make this decision on such a wonderful scientist receiving this prize this evening. Thank you very much.
As I noted earlier this afternoon, we were fortunate to have a keynote speaker to our roundtable discussions, Mr. Brian Atwood, Administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development. His comments brought a timely focus to the need for sustainable agriculture development, particularly as that need is being recognized across the entire continent of Africa. But before I ask Dr. Atwood to join us at the podium, I would like to introduce a few other individuals who participated in the roundtable. My dear friend, Dr. Uma Lele. Uma, would you please stand up? Thank you very much for being with us today and joining us at the roundtable. I would also like to recognize our laureate from 1990, Dr. John Niederhauser. John, would you please stand up? And three of my quote, fellow members of the Council of Advisors, Al Clossie, Dr. Pekka Linko, and Mike Gardner, who are with us today, please. It is indeed a privilege to serve on the Council of Advisors with such distinguished individuals. Now, if I may, I would like to ask Brian Atwood to come up and make a few additional comments, please. Thank you.
I'm very privileged to be here today as a representative of the United States government. This is indeed an international prize given to some of the world's most prominent citizens, and certainly Dr. Heron qualifies in that regard. But perhaps, and so on behalf of my government, I congratulate you, Dr. Heron, for the contribution you have made. But perhaps more importantly, I would like to personally thank you on behalf of my children and their children to come, and in particular, those millions of children in Africa for whom cassava is the bread of life. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Brian. Your remarks are most appropriate for the recognition of our laureate. We have now come to the high point in our program, where we will recognize the 1995 World Food Prize laureate. As previously noted, this is the 9th year for the prize, but equally significant, it's the 6th year that it's been awarded here in the state of Iowa. This has great meaning to those of us on the council who feared in earlier days that the very survival of the prize back in the periods of 1989, 1988, and 1989, when the future of the prize was in doubt. It was at that time that John Ruan stepped forward and made a decision to establish the World Food Prize Foundation and assume sponsorship for the prize. That initial vision of John Ruan, the commitment by the Ruan family, and the continued support of the legislature of the state of Iowa will surely provide the stability that will eventually make this prize, the World Food Prize, the Nobel equivalent for food and agriculture, recognized and respected the world over. I speak both personally on behalf of the entire Council of Advisors, as I now express congratulations and appreciation to the Ruan family and the entire state of Iowa. Would the Ruans please join me at this time?
Thank you, Bob. The Ruan family is proud to sponsor the World Food Prize Foundation and to work with you and other members of the World Prize to advance the goals of the prize. This is the moment we have been waiting for, the moment for our 1995 World Prize, Food Prize laureate. And this is your moment, Dr. Herron.
This is the moment, this is the day, this is the moment when I know I'm on my way. Every endeavor I have made ever is coming into play, is here and now today. This is the moment, this is the time, when the momentum and the moment are in rhyme. Give me this moment, this moment, this moment. I'll gather up my past and make some sense and last. This is the moment, my final test. Destiny beckons, I never reckon the second best. This is the day, just see how it shines, when all I lived for becomes mine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your 9th annual World Food Prize laureate, Dr. Hans Herron.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ruan family, the World Food Prize Foundation, it's my privilege and honor to present the 1995 World Food Prize to Dr. Hans Herren.
We're nearing the close of this particular event for this year. It has been, I think, a very fine celebration. I would like to ask closing remarks from the Honorable Friedrich J. Vogel. My goodness. We haven't asked the laureate himself to make his acceptance speech yet. Thank you, Herman. Somehow that didn't fit in my program anywhere. Let me then present again to you the 1995 laureate, Dr. Hans Herren. Hans.
I hoped, maybe I almost got off lucky, but I didn't. So. Mr. Chairman, members of the Governing Council, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start this statement with a word from Mahatma Gandhi. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. The change I saw was needed was that people, all people, must have access to food, not just any food, but food which is nutritious, wholesome, and unspoiled. Food which is grown in optimum quantity and under sustainable conditions so that all of us have enough today and so that we also conserve our capital, the common living dirt, as was described by Marge Pierce, so that the future generations can live long and healthy lives. This change is without doubt the one seen by both Mr. John Ruan and Dr. Norman Borlaug, and thus their passion and full dedication to the cause of food security and sustainable agriculture. Both deserve our commendation and praise for their many important accomplishments. The World Food Prize, which has been awarded to me today, recognizes not only my personal effort, but also the efforts of my extraordinary team, which include scientists, extension workers, and farmers on 4 continents. It recognizes, above all, the plight of the needy and the efforts being made to assure them not only food, but also dignity and a chance to move beyond the daily insecurity of not knowing if their families will enjoy a next meal. The World Food Prize has also provided a unique and most welcome opportunity to broadcast the virtues and potential of biological control. For the second time, a pest control intervention which guarantees the integrity of the environment and works in harmony with the agroecosystem has been the winning selection of the World Food Prize Committee. Biological control operates most naturally in our fields, orchards, gardens, forests, grasslands. It also operates in areas devoid of human habitation. This environmentally friendly pest control strategy, which is not new at all, was relegated to the back closet with the discovery of modern pesticides, which kill with speed and power. It is only fairly recently that the general public and policymakers have become aware of the downside of the miracle cure: food laced with residues, water wells contaminated and rendered useless, air pollution, to sum it up, environmental degradation. Through the use of products which are foreign to the system, the natural balance between plants, insects, and their natural enemies is being destroyed, bringing about new pest outbreaks in which arthropod pests and weeds alike become resistant to any form of treatment. This leads into the now familiar treadmill of increasing the need for external input, thus creating dependence on new substances with ever greater potency. Agriculture, however, is itself an intervention in the natural system, and so we are bound to experience a reaction. The system's counter-reaction is enhanced if we ignore the basic principle of nature and is made worse by the use of powerful and indiscriminate tools to rectify its natural reactions. If the pesticide path may have looked financially affordable by the developed countries, it certainly is not for the farmers of the developing countries. In the north, the cost of the side effects are borne by the overall community via subsidies, high health care costs, and taxes for cleanup operations. The damages to the environment, many as yet unknown, will be paid for by future generations. Mother Earth, with her diversity and fertility, can nourish us all, and even more, but we must treat her with respect and gratitude. Her resilience, although great, has its limitations. Early in my career, I was impressed with Dr. Norman Borlaug and his award of the Nobel Peace Prize for his pioneering work in increasing food production for the world's hungry. Although I grew up on a farm, the determination to follow a career in the area of agronomy and crop improvement became a must with such a role model as Dr. Borlaug. Eventually, I ended up not a blend breeder, but an entomologist, this thanks to my professor at the Swiss Institute of Technology in Zurich, who, through his most interesting lectures and dedication to biological control and integrated pest management, got me hooked on the fascinating world of insects. It is during my stay at the University of California in Berkeley that I picked up the virus for biological control from the late Professor Robert van den Bosch. Together with my parents, these three personalities were the role models who shaped what I am and what I stand for and do. When I went to Africa in 1979, to a continent known for its food problems due to droughts, poor soils, difficult farming conditions, and overall lack of investment in agricultural research, little did I know about the challenges awaiting me. Little did I know that I would be a part in resolving one of the major threats to the food security of over 200 million people in Africa, south of the Sahara, living in an area 1.5 times the size of the United States of America. I was determined to do my best, however difficult the task may be, and whatever roadblocks I might find on my way, laid by bureaucrats, critical and outright anti-biocontrol colleagues, or business interests. Now a few words to the cassava and the mealybug story. You have heard some, seen some. Cassava was domesticated by the Indians of the Amazon basin of Brazil. It is an ideal food plant, providing a carbohydrate-rich meal from its starchy roots and a protein-rich vegetable from its leaves. It can be stored in the ground for several years until harvested. Its propagation is simple via stem cuttings, which grow easily in an environment ranging from the dry northeast of the deep rainforest of Brazil. And so also cassava thrives in the different ecological zones of Africa, from the desertic zone of the sub-Sahara into the high tropical rainforest. Its hardiness makes it the ideal crop for subsistence agriculture and for shifting and nomadic lifestyles. It was always where you planted it until the mid-1970s. Kinshasa and Brazzaville, 1977. The citizens and the authorities of the capital cities of Zaire and the Congo are calling for help. The staple food, cassava roots and leaves, have withered away. The cause is identified as candlestick disease. The normally green and lush bushes, about 6 to 8 feet tall, have shrunk to foot-tall dried stick, devoid of leaves and starchy roots. The price of whatever cassava is still available in that region, brought in from afar, is beyond the average pocketbook. Starvation is around the corner, in the cities and in the countryside. The disease is spreading fast in all directions at a rate of several hundred miles a year. In a few years, new trouble spots will appear in the extreme west and east of Africa, always with the same picture of fields of dried sticks. The governments of the concerned countries request assistance for an immediate solution to the problem. Fortunately, scientists had already identified the cause of the problem to be due to an insect, the cassava mealybug, and not to a disease. Trials with insecticide, usually the first move when there is a pest problem, did not show promise. Their price, availability, and effectiveness disqualified them as a solution. The search for resistant plants and the development of new varieties would have taken about 10 to 15 years. Too long a wait. So the problem was left with only one possible solution, and as it happened, the best: biological control. If effective natural enemies could be found, they could be reared and released in a time frame short enough to avert mass starvation. Any successful program would need to catch up on lost time and keep up with the continued and non-stoppable spread of the cassava mealybug across the African continent. Within 8 years of its first recovery, the mealybug had reached all corners of Africa where cassava is grown. And again, imagine way beyond the borders of the continental United States. The International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, for short the IITA, in 1979. Based in Nigeria and set up by the Ford and Rockefeller Foundation in the late 1960s to provide research and capacity building in support of agricultural development in Africa, the IITA immediately picked up the cassava mealybug challenge. I joined IITA fresh from a postdoctoral appointment at Berkeley to carry out what was to become the largest biocontrol program in the world. And I would like to pay tribute here to Dr. W.K. Gamble, Director General of IITA at the time, for having entrusted me with the task against the advice of his close collaborators. After a most interesting period of 18 months exploring the Americas from Southern California to Argentina for the cassava mealybug, its presumed area of origin, the culprit was discovered in Paraguay by a collaborator in the program from an IITA sister center based in Colombia. The center is called CIAT. The discovery of the mealybug led us automatically to its natural control agents, which kept it at such low population levels that no scientist had ever seen the cassava mealybug. Such natural control agents were what I was looking for. The fact that this insect had been able to develop in Africa without constraint with no limiting factor except the availability of food source, led us to deduce that it must have originated from another continent. This was confirmed by the Museum of Natural History in Paris, whose consensus was that this was a species new to science but closely resembling to Latin American mealybugs. 2 years later, 1981, in Ayatia in Ibadan, Nigeria, after the discovery of the mealybug, an intensive search of the bordered areas between Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil turned up several species of natural enemies, including, among them, wasps and ladybird beetles. All of these were transported to Africa after a period of quarantine in the UK in order to eliminate all unwanted organisms and diseases which may have been harbored by those insects. At the IATA laboratories, the wasps and ladybirds were studied in great details, mass rearing protocols were established, and the first experimental release is undertaken in November 1981. Meanwhile, research into the cassava ecosystem, the mealybug and its natural enemies was going full steam ahead. The training program, which eventually involved nearly 1,000 scientists and technicians from across the continent, had picked up momentum, and so had the nearly 30 national biological control programs, which became partners in the program's survey, release, post-release assessment activities. The integration of research, capacity building, and national program development into one program funded by a consortium of donors contributed greatly to the swift success of the control operation. By any standard, the economic evaluation of the program with a cost-benefit ratio of 1 to 149 is most impressive for development undertaking. Note also that this calculation only accounts for the costs of the first 20 years of the program, notwithstanding that the fact its benefit will accrue forever. 11 years later, the mass rearing operation at IATA had been closed down, and the aircraft and specially designed airborne insect release system, called the AIRS, have been retired for good. The mealybug is no longer a problem in about 95% of the cassava growing zones of Africa. The cassava farmer's nightmare has gone. In most areas, the farmers see the cassava grow again as it used to, completely unaware of our efforts, except for the few who did see an aircraft overhead or the teams of scientists stomping around and bending over the cassava plants in their fields. Herein lies one of the greatest advantages of biological control, but perhaps also its dilemma. Once natural enemies are released, they will do their job, keeping their host at tolerable levels permanently and without further input. That's what we may call sustainable. With few exceptions, biological control offers no commercial potential for the long term against a single pest. When one problem is resolved, a new one needs to be tackled and new investment made. However, the level of investment required decreases over time as facilities and trained personnel are at hand for new undertakings. The recovery of investment is difficult, if not impossible, at least in the developing countries. Here, I should like to pose an important question. Should not pest control be more of this type? That is, the task of international, regional, or national organization. This would save millions of dollars in pesticides today and tomorrow, and would cost comparatively little. Such an approach would not place time bombs or mines in the environment with which to harm our innocent children. The cassava mealybug biological control program is now a model for solving other pest problems in Africa and the tropics. And I wish it would be made more example for the North. It has demonstrated the feasibility of large-scale programs very economically and with great care for the ecosystem. As director of the IATA Plant Health Management Division and the Center for Biological Control in Benin, where we had moved in 1988, I started with my 30-scientist strong team a biological control program on other introduced pests of cassava, such as the cassava green mite, a pest which, although not as devastating as the mealybug, is serious enough to require permanent control. Also, we brought under control the mango mealybug in West and Central Africa, which was brought in from the Indian continent, accidentally, obviously. Also, and started major IPM programs in cassava, corn, cowpeas, banana, water weeds. The foresight, and above all, the readiness of a special friend of Mr. Eric Sisoli of the International Fund for Agricultural Development based in Rome, who in early 1980 dared to take a risk in allocating the first US $280,000 to the cassava mealybug biocontrol program, is worth a special vote of thanks. The continued support and organization by IFAD of a donor supporting group and the support of Mr. Sisili's successor, Dr. Abbas Kaseba, is also acknowledged with thanks. Special mention for support and confidence in the program go to the development cooperation agencies of many European and North American countries, as well as to international organizations like the UNDP, FAO, African Development Bank, etc. After having guided to completion the successful cassava mealybug biological control program, I now look back and find my biggest reward to be the fact that over 200 million Africans have a meal to look forward to. It is equally rewarding to note that plant protection specialists across the continent have been exposed to and participated in a live model of what can be done with nature when a pest strikes. The program has thus empowered them and their constituency. The future for an eventually sensible plant health strategy now looks much brighter, and I'm pleased that at least Africa has shown the way in accepting the challenge to try something different when so much was at stake. In my new position at the head of the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, called the ICIPE in Nairobi, I shall continue promoting what I believe in, which is continuing to promote environmentally sustainable technologies and solutions, which will alleviate world poverty and hunger, while increasing access to good health and education. In this unpredictable world, this will help bring about stability and optimism. There are many more challenges remaining. The World Food Prize, which I am receiving today, will help me a great deal to be heard better, to attract the attention of policymakers, government officials, and the donor community. We need to invest today in our future. I'm appealing to the generosity and the passion of the haves of this world to support more efforts, such as the one I just talked about. It is our common global responsibility. Support for agricultural research for the basic human needs, such as hunger, poverty, and health, is needed in order to address the challenges facing us. With the lead time from research to implementation of a decade or more, there is no time to lose. The population clock is ticking away relentlessly, and you have seen it on the screen here. Mr. Chairman, members of the Governing Council, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear family, it is with great honor and gratitude that I accept the prize you have awarded me for simply doing what needed to be done. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all the colleagues whose contribution and dedication to the program made it success it has become. The prize has not only given a chance to the world to learn about cassava, the cassava mealybug, and biological control. It has given a forum and a voice to the poor of this world, the people for whom cassava plant could mean life or death. It has also given a voice to the insects, most of which are good and essential element of our survival. The great honor I'm receiving today will make it a lot easier for me to continue promoting insect sciences for the benefit of mankind with fresh impulses and initiatives. I did enjoy every step along the way. It was satisfying and rewarding. Going against the grain and jumping hurdles are part of the excitement of being a scientist, working at the cutting edge of development with a difference, truly sustainable development. Finally, I should like to thank my wife and my children who have made many sacrifices, not least in allowing their husband and father to go on long journeys to the Americas and across the African continent. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much, Hans. I'm glad I allowed you to make that speech. You didn't do a simple job simply. You did a complex, difficult, highly political, and high motivational job very, very superbly. For that, you have our thanks. Closing remarks now. I think they're in order, Herman. Is that correct? Let me turn then to closing remarks by the Honorable Friedrich J. Vogel, Consul General for the Midwest of the Government of Switzerland. Please.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, as official representative of Switzerland in the Midwest, I'm both happy and proud to be here today on the occasion of this presentation of the World Food Prize to my compatriot, Dr. Hans Herren. On behalf of the Swiss authorities and on behalf of the Swiss people, but also in the name of Mr. Carlo Iagmetti, the Swiss ambassador to the United States, I have the privilege to present my most sincere congratulations to the laureate, wishing him further success in his work, which is so important in the combat against famine and malnutrition in the world. Allow me also to commend and applaud Mr. John Ruan and the John Ruan Foundation for their important contribution in the struggle for a planet free from hunger and poverty. Let us hope that such a world one day may become reality. This, however, can only be achieved with the financial support of the rich, the solidarity of us all, and the dedication of many scientists such as Dr. Herren. Thank you very much.
It's my privilege, then, to thank each and every one of the people who did so much to bring this award ceremony together so effectively. You will never know, unless you've done things like this, how much time and effort and coordination and goodwill and so forth it takes on behalf of so many people to make it all come together and work so reasonably well. We hope you've enjoyed the day. Let me take now this occasion to call forth the laureate again and ask his family to join him on the stage, if they will, please. As a small gesture of friendship, the young folks who entertained us so beautifully at the beginning of the program would like to make a small gift for the Hans Herren children. Barbara Herren children, excuse me. Barbara's children, actually. Our thanks once again, thank you, ladies. Our thanks once again to all concerned. Let me remind you that you'll have an opportunity to meet our laureate and his family and to discuss with the panel members and others things that may be on your mind. We're having a reception and refreshments outside as soon as you can reasonably get there. Thank you very much.
This is the moment, this is the hour when I can open tomorrow like a flower and put my hand to everything that I plan to fulfill my grand design, see how my stars align. This is